The roundtable, 100 days before winter, part 1, and fuel and energy system, challenges and solutions. We'll try to clarify how ready we are for winter season and autumn, and we'll try to clarify those threats that we have on the way to prepare for winter autumn period. We'll start with presentation of experts. We have an hour and a half. In the end, we'll have questions answers session. Now I give the floor to William Bryan, Deputy Minister of Energy of the US, as an expert who knows the situation in this sector, and he has his own opinion how we should prepare. Please, the floor is yours, Mr. Bryan.
It is an honor and a privilege to be here today. I do want to correct my title for the record. I'm formerly a Deputy Assistant Secretary of Energy for Infrastructure Security and Energy Restoration, currently serving in the capacity of a Senior Advisor to the Secretary of Energy, with my efforts focusing on Ukraine. So first, let me begin by explaining why we're here. Many of you may have been in the meeting yesterday or have heard some of the comments that I made, but I think they're worth reiterating. But before I do that, I do want to introduce the colleagues that I'm joined by. Andriy Sedoff, my colleague from Canada, and is also the technical lead for our Canadian team. Johannes Baur from the European Commission, also the lead for our activities from the European Union. So I thank both of them for their country's participation. They made a tremendous impact on the study. So it truly was an international effort, and I cannot stress enough that this is not an international plan or a U.S. plan or a Canadian plan or an EU plan. This is a Ukrainian plan. It was written by Ukrainians, first in Ukrainian, and we had to translate into English. But I do want to tell you what the process was and what our role was. Earlier this fall, we had received a request from your Prime Minister expressing some assistance because he sensed that this winter was not looking good as far as energy supplies. And he wanted a validation of that. He wanted to find out for sure what the facts were on the ground, what the energy condition was now, and what we projected the energy situation to be going into the winter. He knew that last fall we brought an international team, primarily with Canadians and U.S. representatives, to do a contingency plan. He remembered that activity, but that plan was never implemented because of the election. So he wanted us to revisit this activity, only this time working on two separate plans. One of them was a survival plan going into this winter, and the second was a longer-term 2 to 5 year Ukrainian energy independence plan. He recognizes the need to transfer and transition and reform the energy sector. It's not going to happen overnight. But he wanted to know what are those items they could address over the course of the next 2 to 5 years that would allow that to happen. So our role coming into this was really to guide the process. Within the United States, we had representatives from our Federal Emergency Management Agency on the team with us, a tremendous asset. These folks write approximately 100 plans a year in the United States. They know how to write plans. They know how to work in environments where people come from diverse backgrounds and even diverse languages. But it's a structured process, and it works, and it helps the team focus on how to get to the end of the product in a very limited period of time. So our team's focus was to guide that process to keep everybody, primarily the Ukrainians and the support from the international team, on track to complete the project. Second, we were to seek out, assess, and articulate the facts as we discovered them. Now keep in mind, we were here for a short period of time. We did gather a lot of data in a very short period of time from both public and private entities. We had 15 government agencies provide us information. We had other public and private entities providing us information. And at no point did we take any one source as truth. We validated every source and have documentation from every one of our sources to validate our findings. We also developed a process to where we were able to run 30 different scenarios, taking into account weather, taking into account daily burn rates. We looked at weather data and burn rate data for the last 25 years. And through a series of scenarios, we were able to validate our data. Pardon me? No worries. Welcome, Olga. We were able to validate our data, and I will tell you that's probably within a margin of error of 15 to 20%. And 15 to 20% margin of error is not that bad when you're here for that period of time doing the kind of work that we're doing. So we're very secure about our findings and our numbers. The second thing we were supposed to do, in addition to finding the facts on the ground, is validate the best practices and some of the sound recommendations that Ukrainians have been making. Certainly the dynamics in this country, even a good idea will often not get anywhere because it's politicized. So part of what we had to do was try to find out what are those good ideas and recommendations and make sure those are incorporated into this plan. Again, so a lot of these are recommendations from very sound individuals within your government that made these recommendations. And thirdly, we're to provide additional recommendations as we as the international team saw fit to make those recommendations. So to sum it all up, the process was very sound. We had tremendous amount of data. We had a tremendous amount of support from the Prime Minister's office, from the Deputy Prime Minister Voschevsky's staff, and from Minister Dmytro. He provided the workspace for us to work out of. So it was a tremendous effort, and I couldn't be more proud, frankly, of the hard work and the teamwork that we were able to see during this effort.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Your colleagues, first of all, what I wanted to say, preparation for the work of how to prepare our economy for winter, autumn, and we have the conditions that show that, first of all, we need a clear assessment, accurate assessment of the problems that we have in this sector, in energy sector of Ukraine. Precise, not biased, not politicized, assessment without any political influence. That's why the Prime Minister of Ukraine, when he had a visit to the US and he had a meeting with the Vice President and Minister of Energy, Secretary of Energy, he requested, he asked to provide such assistance with the participation of independent experts from the US, Canada, from EU, and as a result, we invited this strong, powerful team. They are professionals of the international level, extra professionals, and as a result, they helped us to prepare the plan for next autumn and winter of energy sector. Here's this plan. You see, it's quite a big book. And the most important what we have here, in addition to constatation of those facts that we know, we have a concrete action plan and what we are supposed to do in the opinion of experts in order to live through this period without any problem. And you heard what the chairman of this group told you, Bryan, and I want to tell you that a lot of work was done. And if there's any, if you ask about details, we'll discuss that. But the conclusion is, we have a very complicated, difficult situation, hard situation. We have a number of problems that can be solved, but they are quite difficult. One of them is how to provide coal for energy and heat generation. You know that anthracite coal is on the territory which is occupied, which is under occupation, and it's very difficult for us to get coal from there. And we'll speak about details later. This is one problem. The next one, the problem of non-payments. One more problem is with fair or realistic or market price for coal. And there is a number of such problems which were accumulating during many years. And our government has to deal with them. We do everything possible to start to take realistic reforms in this sector. This is an extremely difficult task, but we have no time to idle around. We need to start reforms in this sector. It was quite closed, and the corruption was too high in this sector. And this is the sector which is degrading, and this is the sector number one that we have to pay attention to this sector, and we want to have electricity everywhere, we want to have heat everywhere, and we would like to live well through this winter and the rest of the winters. So lots of work is done. Now we have that plan. So independently on political views of those who would like to help us, who participate in this. So we're abstract from influences on this sector. We have that which will allow us to take correct decisions, and I am sure that we have correct decisions, and despite of the problems that I mentioned and the rest of the problems which we'll discuss today, we will go through this winter without big difficulties. That's my conviction. Thank you.
Thank you, Vladimir. Our experts have some other presentations, I believe, right?
My name is Johannes Baur. I work for the support group for Ukraine in the European Commission. In addition to the Winter Action Plan, which gives recommendations for how Ukraine should prepare for the next winter, the team is also working on an energy resilience plan, which gives recommendations for the future energy policy of Ukraine towards energy independence. And this also was a request by the Ukrainian government. I would like to highlight a few points which are, from our point of view, important. In that context, firstly, we think that future energy policy should very much focus on energy efficiency, and energy efficiency is for us a key for Ukraine to become really energy independent, and it has to become an integral part of a future Ukrainian energy policy with clearly assigned responsibilities also in the Ukrainian government. Consumers need to be informed and incentivized to take on their own energy efficiency measures. This is very important for the future of the Ukrainian energy sector, and in that context, of course, also the relevant EU legislation should be implemented. Secondly, fuel diversification for Ukraine should remain a priority. Already in the past year there has been made tremendous progress in terms of gas, and this needs to be continued. And thirdly, we think that the Ukrainian government and the Ministry of Energy should continue the reform path they have started with the adoption and preparation of the gas law. In the gas sector now, the secondary legislation needs to be adopted. Naftogaz needs to be restructured, but also in the other sectors, Similar reform steps need to be taken. An electricity law is currently under preparation by the Ministry of Energy, and we very much encourage these steps for further reforms in the gas and the electricity sector, but also in the coal sector. And finally, we think that it is also absolutely necessary to strengthen the independence of the regulator. A relevant law adopted by the government is in the radar and needs to be adopted as soon as possible. These are some of the key recommendations from the international team, which also will lead Ukraine to closer integration with the EU energy markets, and are part of the Ukrainian commitments undertaken under the Energy Community Treaty and the EU Association Agreement. Thank you.
Дякую. У нас присутня Ольга Бількова. Це
We have Olga Belkova, who's the deputy head of the Parliamentary Committee on Fuel and Energy Complex. Please tell us what are your ideas on preparation to winter. I would like to say that I had the honor and pleasure to work with a group of experts at all the stages of their work. I was able to see the data they were working with, and that is for the first time that in Ukraine we witnessed a very specific work of all branches of power to understand whether that is the disaster, whether that is a normal state of preparation to winter. I cannot share when people the idea when people are saying that that's the disaster. If it is a disaster, then nothing can be made. But in the plan that is developed, it has a very clear action plan at all the levels, and the civil servants and the managers of private companies understand what is to be done. We just need to answer the question, what is the final objective? I support Mr. Voschevskyi, because many politicians, there's a lot of politics in the issues related to energy sector, and it is important that all are concentrated on one thing, that Ukrainian people should survive the winter normally. That means that at all the utilities, at all the gas supplying organizations, at all the power plants, they have enough fuel to survive comfortably through the winter. But also Ukraine is a very inefficient country when we're talking about use of fuel, and that becomes more and more obvious. In the parliament we also support all the recommendations that the colleague from the European Union mentioned, the laws which will stimulate Ukrainians to save energy, electricity and gas, but also I will call upon all my colleagues, politicians, to be very reserved when they provide political assessment of tariffs, because via tariff policy, if we do not explain it to the population, very often when it is not open, when all the calculations are not open, then some part of the population believes that the tariffs are too high, others believe that they are too low. The experts provide very political assessment, and that leads us to another big problem which has become obvious this year, and that is the problem of non-payments. Then people are talking populistically about moratorium, about alienation of the property, and in the result we cannot collect enough funds to procure, to buy gas or coal. We need to understand that, and our committee, I am proud in the work that we have done together with European colleagues. We have passed one of fundamental laws which changes the foundations for relations in the gas market. We are planning to pass other laws, the law on regulator, the law on electricity market, and all these laws will lead to cleaning all the markets from the defects which existed in the past, and now I believe we will move from critical plans to strategic plans of creating all the energy markets in Ukraine. Thank you. Mykhailo Volynets, the head of the independent trade unions of Ukraine, free trade unions of Ukraine. The representatives of the International Commission informed us that they worked with the ministry, and we have doubts whether they were able to receive objective, comprehensive information about the real situation in the fuel and energy complex of Ukraine. Myself, as the member of the Collegium of the Ministry of Fuel and Coal, I was not invited to the meeting of the ministry with the participation of the Prime Minister, just like the chairman of the Ukrainian Association of Trade Unions. I was not involved in to work with the participation of international experts. The authorities, the Minister Dmytro, are not interested in having public control over the situation in preparation to winter, autumn and winter period. We have very little reserves of coal, only 1,370,000 tons, but we need to have 2,500,000. We need also to take into account that this figure does not correspond to reality. It's exaggerated, and also a lot of coal is not of high quality, and the interest site is only 522,000 tons. But out of that volume, 478,000 interest site are at the warehouses of Lugansk thermal power plant, which is operating as an island because of violation of the operations of electric networks. And so the Dnipro power plants, Mivska, Slavinska, which operate using interest site, in the nearest future, Tripolsk and Grygoriev will stop. And now the situation is when all the population, our industry in November and December may stay without lighting, heating, with all the critical consequences of such unresponsible attitude of the Ministry of Energy. I addressed the Vice Prime Minister Voschevskyi half a year ago. I informed him. He was leading the meeting of the anti-crisis headquarters. I would like to thank you because you informed the minister about the situation which concerns the trade unions. But after the minister, after you left the office of the minister, he gave instructions not to allow me as the head of free trade union into the premises of the ministry. Is that the social dialogue? Is that work with the public that characterizes the whole situation which takes place in the country? And I would like to say the following. On the 1st of July, there was a tender for purchasing coal to Ukraine. Those who participated were representatives of Poland, South Africa, Russia, Australia, other companies. Ukraine suggested the coal at the price 1,116 hryvnias, Poland 1,300, South Africa 1,685, Russia 1,800, and Australia 1,865. Ukrainian coal is not bought. The Stakhanov coal mine, where 4,000 people are working, it's for 3 weeks having the fire. Does anyone know about that? Does anyone take care of people? What they need to get vacuum pumps, and this coal mine needs assistance. The coal miners of the mine Novovolynska #1 are on strike for 2 weeks. This coal mine was not transferred into the third group of also southern Donbass coal mine number 3. That's the newest coal mine in Ukraine. It is producing coking coal. The price of it is 1.5 times higher than the price for the regular coal. This coal mine produces only 20,000 tons of the mining ore, not of coal. We see that the representatives of international institutions are coming here, they're working, the minister ignores them. We see that to participate in this round table, the first deputy assistant secretary arrives. That's their level of responsibility. They issued the letters of the ministry, and they're saying that they are that this is to implement the program which was not approved by the Cabinet of Ministers, was not approved by the Free Trade Union Association. If the country doesn't know the true information, if at the international level they fail to assess the real situation, we will find ourselves in a critical situation. I don't want us in winter to be without lighting when electric transportation, metro is not working, when all the industry can stop. Basically, the whole energy system can collapse in the winter. It could be launched only from the territory of Russia, and it will take 6 to 8 months. That is what everyone should know, and all the society should take all possible measures so that we have responsible people who are the managers. The Prime Minister Yatsenyuk and the President Poroshenko, they should share all the responsibility for the critical situation in the fuel and energy complex, and that is the Minister Dmytro who is to be blamed for that.
Thank you very much for such open opinion, such a sincere opinion. But there were questions, and there are concrete action plan. What we heard from Mr. Volynets, it's a lot of things exactly like he told. The situation is very complicated. There was a meeting of anti-crisis headquarters, and we had our foreign colleagues during that meeting, and all the responsible people from ministries and agencies. The Prime Minister underlined one more time when he described the situation as critical, as a crisis. And this is true. We speak about those details Mr. Volynets mentioned about the amount of coal and how it works. The main problem, as I told you, is anthracite coal, which is on occupied territories. We need, as minimum, we need to transport from there 800,000 tons a month. 800,000 per month, and also 1,400,000 to take from, or 1,500,000 of G coal, which is on controlled territories. But it's easier, but there is a problem also there. We have a lot of difficulties and problems, and like on coal enterprises, on mines, and on both territories, on controlled and uncontrolled, and problems related with logistics, how to transport it from the occupied territories. Also, we have problems related to management in that sector, big sector. The problems we have in the Ministry of Energy. Yesterday, we discussed all those problems, and the Prime Minister knows about them. Me as the head of anti-crisis headquarters, daily we are working on dealing with concrete issues. The President knows about these problems. We put all the efforts to correct the situation and to provide, to make it work during autumn-winter period. We have hundreds of problems, but we believe that we will tackle the situation. So this is what I wanted to tell as a reaction to what Mr. Volynets told. We have a vice president of Ukrainian Energy Association, Mr. Rogozin, and what's your opinion? How well are we prepared for autumn winter 2015-2016? Unfortunately, I didn't know about this report yet, so the information I provide now, this is what I could get from open sources, and also based on my 30 years experience in the sector. I would like to mention that the preparation of this sector is based not only on coal, but there are three components. We need to prepare generating equipment, and also we need to prepare the power grid, and also we need to have fuel. I will speak a little bit about fuel. It's not only about coal, but though you know about the main problems. As to generating equipment, yes, as we have information, I have information from generating companies. They have their schedule of maintenance, and which was approved by the ministry. But all that maintenance, it's like a regular maintenance. But even those, even if they have a capital maintenance works, they do minimum. Also, maintenance is complicated because now there is a very difficult situation in the sector, and then there is a lot of demand. So if you stop equipment, it's you cannot do that. Power plants will have problems. From last winter, they used 300 megawatts blocks, and it means that the resource will be expired quicker, and in the end we have a problem of low water level in Dmytro and Dniester, and this is the first time it is so during the last 80 years. So it will be very difficult for us to use power stations on these rivers. I believe that there is not much grounds for optimism that we can get 2.5 million coal before the winter. But if we are able to get import, and if we are able to get coal from occupied territories, we can stabilize the situation. As to natural gas, if we accumulate the way it was declared, if we get 5 billion of gas, then there will be no problem with it. But in case when we have no coal, and if we cannot replace it with natural gas, we have to understand that replacement of 1 million ton of coal, that is half a billion tons cubic meters of gas, and it can be difficult to use it during cold winters, and it will cost 2 times more than the most expensive coal. And in the end, we have such a chance that we could use gas for us not to. We can use on those power plants that use coal. As to electricity grid, main threats are related are related with that power grid in Donbass. Now a lot of lines are destroyed or damaged or very close to the war. Last week, you remember that they switched. We lost 3 blocks for 3 units. Luhansk PP is not working in full operation, and a lot of a big part of lines are damaged, and there is a lot of shelling in that district. Kurakhivska PP is working not in its full operation, and any switch off can limit its power, its load. So we have to remember that if we switch off PP under minus temperatures, can cause unfreezing. They can be frozen, and we can lose them until winter, until spring. One more threat is that we can lose that opportunity that we could import power from Russia. Crimea depends now on all supplies from Ukraine, but if we lose that opportunity to get electricity from Russia, we could have very big losses. Now there is a big load on nuclear PP, and we don't have the system how to regulate frequency. So regulation of the frequency, in such a case, if there is an parallel line, it will be done automatically. I have to mention that Ukraine faced similar problems in energy sector. We worked without parallel lines, parallel supplies from Russia. We had a deficit of coal, and we had to use gas. We had, because of financial difficulties, we had problems in 2009, but never we had a combination of all these factors together, especially if we look at risks, specific risks related to the situation in Donbass. Serious accidents or incidents can happen under some conditions. When something switches off, something doesn't work, somebody is reacted incorrectly. But all these factors are important, especially now. The danger is very high, and I'm afraid that heroism will not be enough under such circumstances. So I believe that the situation is critical. We should prepare not only plan A, but also plan B and C. We should think about different scenarios and for the most difficult circumstances. For us to keep the situation under control, and also to provide everything possible for the economy to work. Thank you very much. The experts. Anybody would like to comment on the opinion of our internal expert? I believe that what he told, that a description of the situation yesterday at the meeting of energy headquarters, we discussed those issues, and the Ministry of Energy was more optimistic in his assessment. I would like to say that there are no reasons for panicking, but we need to work seriously 24 hours a day. This is what we need to do. It's not time to settle accounts, to argue and to discuss who is a bigger or smaller monopolist in this sector. We, the government, should work and should be tough to all generating companies, and we should do everything possible using the means we have, the instruments we have, in order to make them work. We understand that this is a serious challenge. It's not just one challenge our government is facing. We have lots of them, starting with the threat of default. And firstly, we resolved that problem. Also, there are big problems in different sectors of economy. We can discuss that. And that could be a separate topic for discussion. In every sector of economy, we need to work, and we do work, and including in energy sector. And despite of misunderstanding, including misunderstanding with some people in the Ministry of Energy, we are working, and I believe that we will succeed. But we have to remember that we have the war in the east, and that has a big impact, including on the energy sector. We'll do everything possible for us to live through the next winter normally. And I believe that journalists have now a unique chance to ask questions. These, my colleagues worked hard, and they processed lots of information. All the ministries and agencies and hundreds of people participated in this work. They provided information to this highly professional group. They processed that information. All the numbers precise, and they verified 10 times. They also developed different scenarios, and we know what to do. And that's what I wanted to tell. Now we could move to questions of journalists, if they have them.
I insist that I can say a few words. I again would like to address the Vice Prime Minister Valeryi Voschevskyi. I believe that you are the person who could be trusted as a civil servant, and that gives us some optimism. But I would like to mention a few things. First, because of how the leadership of the Ministry of Fuel and Energy of Ukraine was working this year in this situation, not a single country will sell us coal without prepayment. That is what we understand. We need to talk about that. We lost capacity in thermal energy. We have capacity which is 12.5 gigawatt. Only 4.9 are operating. I will not explain why we lose. That is bad quality repairs, the lack of coal, and many other things. What don't we mention? There's a chain of non-payments. Today, energy market does not pay to energy and electricity suppliers. They do not pay to coal suppliers. Energy sector turns off the supply of electricity to the coal mines. They owe money to each other, and that is what is the situation in the country. We see that, and we do not hear what could be done in this situation. Now, the behavior of the regulator, when manually they set the tariffs they want at the same time in Russia. Please don't interrupt me. You interrupt only me. In January, in November, we bought electricity in Russia, 85 kopecks per kilowatt per hour. At the same time, we had the tariff 72 kopecks here, and the losses were covered by our thermal plants. At the same time, Ukraine was selling electricity to Crimea at the cost of 70 kopecks, and these 13 kopecks difference between the price was covered by our thermal plants. This way they were taken to bankruptcy. I would like to ask Mr. Vovk. Mr. Vovk was to be here, but he did not come here. Please don't interrupt me. Also, Mr. Vovk received money for the T-bills of the bank. Why didn't he, for 2017, why didn't he give money to the coal and energy sector? Why didn't he give money to coal miners? Then one more thing, I would like you to verify this information, but I have information from confidential sources that the electricity which is bought from Russia is bought at the price 1 hryvnia 70 kopecks, but they paid 91 kopek to our thermal generation facilities. I would like to get answers to these questions. I again address the Vice Prime Minister. I request you, please try. Because the society does trust you, please talk to the Prime Minister. I believe that yesterday he was not convincing. He did not really appreciate what is the behavior of the minister. I believe that the Prime Minister does not understand who is holding this position from his political force. I would like to get answers to these questions, if not now, then at least so that the whole country can hear the answers. Thank you. So, will you provide answers, Mr. Voschevskyi, now or later? Right. Many questions, yes. Many questions which are to be addressed. What Mr. Volynets is talking about is what we are working with. That is the situation which we have today. I don't see where I can say no to him. I cannot say that his information is wrong. His information is true. That's the first thing. Well, now talking about regulator, yes, talking about transparency of the operations, that's an issue which hasn't been addressed yet. Independent regulator, but at the same time the society, first of all, those who work in the energy sector, they should know what are the approaches, what are the assessment, what are the perspectives, what's the situation today. This is the information that shouldn't be hidden from anyone, despite the fact that there are some specific types of works and calculations. I agree with you. There are problems in management of the system, and all you say about the minister, yeah, and that's true. All you say, well, the president said that in September, in this October, the government will be reformatted. I believe that he meant also what you are talking about. I'm sure that he will do that. We need to honestly say, when the coalition was forming the government, there were many personnel mistakes committed, and that is true. They have been corrected partially. The next step is September, will be taken in September. There are many problems, but the main thing is we need to be open for the society. We need to talk honestly, directly. We need to see all the problems, and that will give us grounds to believe that we will address all the problems. That is basically what I wanted to tell you. Again, about coal, we do have an opportunity to have enough coal. We are dispatching the first boat in Ilyichovsk, unloading the first boat at the price of $65. that is the coal from South Africa. We have to buy additional volumes every day, every hour. We control the situation. 600,000 tons from ATO zone that we received last month is not enough. We need minimum 800,000. There are many problems in logistics in Ukrzaliznytsia. We're addressing them, and I believe that we will be able to get 800,000 tons from there. And that will mean that we will reduce the import. If we see that we cannot do that, we will increase the import in our coal balance. We are working. Tell us where we are committing mistakes. The government does not see all the problems. Just tell us, we will be addressing them. If the participants of the roundtables don't have any questions, Olga, I would like to provide a brief comment. I would like to remind all of us, the government and the parliament are responsible together and jointly, and I would like the journalists and the public to see the documents. What is in the documents is given to all of us, including the consumers. So we need not to change, to turn the plan of preparation to winter to the search of the one who's to be blamed. We are here to get ready for the winter period of time, to understand whether the barriers in the system which are barriers to all the civil servants to supply gas or coal or all the resources we need for the winter time. Thank you. If you have no objections, let us listen to questions from the audience. Esteemed colleagues, please. We have simultaneous translation here, so all the questions should be asked into the microphone. The first question, please take the microphone and introduce yourself. Alexei Kucherenko, the head of the Association of Owners of Housing, the consumer, basically. The member of parliament emphasized that, and I will give my request. Yesterday I heard a very dangerous statement of Prime Minister who's talking about criminal responsibility for non-payment of consumers. That is not bad, but my first question is, that is the question to the government and to the parliament. Where is the consumer present when you are making your decisions? Maybe the consumer was present when you were approving the tariffs. Mr. Voschevskyi said correctly that he needs the balance of gas to talk about price for gas, coal, not gas, sorry. When you were making the price for gas, there was no balance at that time, and you were proven, and that was proven to you. I can tell you that I will be pleased to read the document. I'm sure that the foreign experts want to help us, but I know what will be the mistake there. You believe that this is elastic demand. You believe that the consumer will pay for that, but that's not elastic market, it's not elastic demand, and now the decrease in payments is the first signal, but that's the summertime signal. But you should understand what will happen in the winter. And so first piece of advice, first of all, in the government, in the regulator, invite the consumers for your meetings. You all together will be responsible. I understand that. But to listen to me, when I hear whether the minister is good or bad, I don't care. Just take a decision. The government, the coalition, the president, these are those who are responsible for the situation in the country. One request to the government and the MPs. You say that you passed the law on the gas market. The main law which the country requires is the law on regulator. We cannot create the market unless we have the regulator. For 13 years, Mr. Martinenko is heading the committee, but there's no law. Yesterday the Prime Minister mentioned that, but as far as I know, now there is fighting around who will be appointing the members, but not around how this body will be operating. I would like to draw your attention. 72nd directive, European directive, requires creation of a special institution of ombudsman who will be implemented into the system, who will be protecting the consumer. And that is my warning and my proposal. We have super, hyper monopolist in the market of traditional electricity. That is DTEC company. Please talk to anti-monopoly committee, classify them as a monopolist, and then this will allow to regulate them according to the special procedure. Then second, you are all talking about gas, about coal, but you do not even imagine what problems the thermal energy sector has. You do not understand what is how inadequate the process of pricing there is. 40 people are providing services to 600 license holders. That is a big mistake of the president. When you merge two commissions into one body, the communal sector is not regulated, and the process of tariff setting tariffs is very chaotic there. That is the topic for some other roundtables. And how can we help you? That is, how can we help you?
You're absolutely correct that we should involve consumers and officially invite you to work in the committee, set up its interagency committee, and Minister of Energy, Economy, etc., are represented, and there should be representative from consumers. So on Wednesday, the Cabinet of Ministers will approve the list of participants of that committee and the regulation about the committee. That is a recommendation of our colleagues to do that urgently. So I invite you personally, individually, participate, come, become a part of that group. That's extremely important. The regulator was divided before. It's a clear topic. There is a problem in the housing sector, and because of that, or utilities sector, the system of subsidies of the government works. And the meeting in Kharkiv told us, field meeting, we were there on Friday, and you probably heard that conversation in Kharkiv. Now we have about 2 million people who request subsidies. So people receive bills for 1,000 hryvnia, so to say, and if they pay, can cover only 200, and then 800 is paid by the government. That works because neighbors spread rumors, etc., etc. It's very difficult to inform the society that and how this system works of subsidies or assistance from the government, but it works. We expect that about 2 more million people will apply for those subsidies. What we saw in Kharkiv, there is resistance to that program of the government. In the evening, TV channels in Kharkiv, local channel, told people that, well, don't get subsidies, don't apply for subsidies, because then they will take you your apartments or house. And so there is anti-state activity. They don't want to understand that we are on a correct road. We can fix the situation in the energy sector. For decades, nobody did anything there. So finally, the government started to work. So interagency committee, the first meeting will be on Thursday. You are invited. Your experience will be helpful to find a good decision, good solution. Thank you very much. There are more questions here. Introduce yourself. And Maria Tsiturian, special correspondent for LBK Ukraine. I have two questions, one to Mr. Voschevskyi, the other one to Mr. Bryan, William Bryan. Mr. Voschevskyi, could you explain why we have such a situation in the energy sector? For a year, we have anti-terrorist operation in the east, and everybody knows that the reserve of coal is not evenly distributed. It's You knew that 50% of anthracite coal is in Luhansk PP. What has happened with the government? Did you do anything, or you didn't do anything? What are the reasons why it happened? The question to Mr. Bryan. We heard about your plan. Could you say A, B, C, what that plan includes? What does it provide? In case we have a very difficult winter, the coldest winter, what should we do? So the most negative scenario, what do you suggest in that plan? 1, 2, 3.
Deputy Prime Minister insists that I go first. So let me first state that the recommendations, and I just want to make sure I get the right page of my notes here, but let me first state that let's not forget that this concern was recognized by the Ukrainian government, senior members in the Ukrainian government, some time ago. It was concerned back in March, April timeframe. That's the reason why we were brought in, to validate it. So this is something that was a concern but not validated because the information being provided to the senior levels in government were not consistent, right? So we were asked to bring consistency to that process. Our focus was very clear. It was on 4 areas. We were to look at natural gas. We were to look at energy generation, primarily coal. We were to look at the energy or the heating systems, the heating districts, and also look at energy crisis. Now, why energy crisis? And I think I'll start there. It is very important for every government, we think, to have a structured, codified process of senior government officials that come together on a routine basis, who have authorities, who have regulatory mandates to look at different crises and address these situations very early on. So we think that is a significant fix for the government. That is happening. The Prime Minister designated that group, identified the Deputy Prime Minister to lead that group, and now it's working, the workings of that group to practice and interact with each other on a weekly basis will now start producing a lot of fruits that you may not have had to have in the past. All right, certainly in the areas of gas, I'm not going to get into the specific numbers, but certainly to reach the goals that you needed to reach, you were not on the path to get there. Where the injection rates were far too low, and there were a lot of reasons for that. And our group, I will tell you, we were not here to identify why it didn't happen. We were not here to find out who was at fault for not making it happen. The energy sector, as you've heard from everyone on this the table, is very complex. There are a lot of working parts, a lot of working parts. So the scenarios we had to develop were very complex to come to the decisions that we came to. The important thing is, though, is that I can truly see that the senior levels in your government are mobilizing efforts and activities to address the situations that we raised in the report. The numbers are not as important as the fact that they need to go up. That's what's important. So, you know, gas needs to increase. Coal needs to increase. Where you get it from, how you get it, the amounts you get it, and where those amounts go to are really driven by the government and the need to create generation. The electric grid is very, very critical going into this winter to maintain a balanced grid. And is balanced by 2 means, by bringing energy to increase the generation capacity or by reducing that demand. I would hope in the course of all this, and I think the Prime Minister started this activity, is to really talk about energy conservation going into this winter. This is something every Ukrainian can do, recognizing that they have these challenges coming in this winter. What are you doing now to start conserving your energy usage? And there are some concrete steps that were recommended for how industries could potentially shift hours, maybe to reduce, bring more of a level grid. You know, maintaining that approximately 49 hertz on the grid is important. And the grid is designed to protect generation, right? So if that 49 hertz starts to fluctuate too much, generation has to shut down to protect the generation plants. Hence the need to make sure you have adequate fuel to keep your generation plants operating. So the need to make sure you have a sustainable amount of coal going to these plants is very, very essential. The heating districts Currently, there are a lot of inefficiencies. There are some systems where the water return through a system is at 0. That's not good, because you're using gas to heat water that's necessarily not heating what it's supposed to heat. So there are some maintenance things that have to occur. But I certainly see, and you will, I'm certain the plan from what I hear will probably be made available to the public. I think you'll see the plan lays out recommendations, not just international team recommendations, but Ukrainians making these recommendations. And I got to tell you, there are a lot of very smart people out there right now managing your energy systems and your grids, making sure that balance is maintained so you don't experience blackouts. But they have to have that generation, sustained generation at the right level to be able to do that during times when you need it the most. And I'm encouraged by the steps that we're seeing the government taking to make that happen.
Є представник міністерства.
We have a representative from the Ministry of Energy. What would be your answer? Is it something unexpected for us in this situation, or are we ready for this? You remember that during the last month we had a plus 300 tons. And so what's your assessment of the situation? And I will add to your comments. Thank you. I can answer for that part of coal industry, which is on controlled territory. There are some problems on our mines, and those problems were accumulating for decades. That's why that is also a problem by itself. But mines, public mines, they unload coal, and gas coal is provided by them. That's what I wanted to tell. Nothing. What happened that we have not expected? So we came to quite a serious level of coal supplies at the beginning of June. So we were enlarging that amount, but we have a problem we cannot resolve. That is related to railroads. We have only one track to transport coal. That's Yasinovata-Kozlovata. That is the name. That's and that's not sufficient for us, because that are all directions go, and all the cargoes go, and the cogs coal, and all the rest of the cargoes that go to and fro. So that's a task to resolve. We thought that we would build a new railroad, Mayorska-Nikitovka, to Yasinovata, and about 20 trains could go there. We would resolve the problem, but unfortunately the ceasefire agreement doesn't work, so they shell in there. So more than 10 times we agreed with them, and our staff went to start the repairing of those lines, and they were shelling every time. So every time we were not able to fish, and there is a lot, just the work for 3-4 days. So we will try to support that part in Minsk format, and I believe that we will resolve the problem in 2 weeks, and then that problem will be resolved. So we'll have one more opportunity to transport coal. So nothing that we don't expect. So the Prime Minister starts the day with that. And we will introduce some new instruments, and they will have meetings in the Ministry of Energy, or once a day or 2 times a day, and with generating companies and mines and railroads, all be on the board, who have influence on this on the province, and security services will be involved, and military prosecution, and there will be a whole set of activities taken by the government to control the situation, to fix it, and to provide everything which is needed. It's a difficult work, and a lot of details I could tell you about. We don't have a lot of secrets, but that's at a different time. So again, Again, I would like to tell you that the government understands the problems we are facing, and the government understands the efforts to be put to resolve these problems. So that's why we have our American, European colleagues. That's why we have many other instruments that have not been used before. Now we are working. And I believe that we will be prepared for this winter. And I'm sure.
Yes, here's the plan, and we will approve it at the Cabinet of Ministers meeting, because that's the round table. I will take the floor again. If I may, very briefly, three things. First, let's go back to yesterday's anti-crisis meeting headed by the Prime Minister. He announced the chairperson, Mr. Voschevskyi, and the co-chairman, Mr. Dmytro. So the Vice Prime Minister doesn't have enough powers to cope with the task. He doesn't have the team. All these powers and the team are with the minister. That's according to the responsibility of civil servants. And the third thing, I would like to call upon all the branches of power, including the representatives of the parliament, so that we all share the responsibility and we understand that the situation is critical in this fuel and energy complex. If in a month we are saying same things, if no personnel changes are made, I'm saying it with all the responsibility. The whole country understands it. The situation of absolute irresponsibility will continue. One more question. Here's the question. Mirror of the week, 2.5 million tons is more than $2 million. The government cannot change the situation. If the whole country is getting cold because of $5 per person, then there will be the desire that people will have to hang someone. There's money in the country, the money is stolen, but who's stealing? That is my first question. And the second question, how many contracts are signed for supply of coal from abroad? And now, like last year in August, we were just negotiating about imported coal. Now 5 months in the past, and we have just 7 left. And if 7 months, then who will resign if in a month we have same problem? Who were you asking this question to? This is the question to Mr. Voschevskyi. Yes, I understand your position. As to the question $5, the government has passed the decision according to which the Energorynek will get 2 billion credit. A few days it will take for the money to arrive. We live every day, we consume electricity, people pay, and the money gets to energy market. We do have some current resources, and the money is used additionally to accumulate. Despite all the problems we have, 2 billion will be received by thermal energy sector. That's the minimum we can get. In 2-3 weeks we will see what will be the situation in ATO zone, and we will increase the import. The first 80,000 tons are being unloaded in Ilychevsk. There are preliminary agreement that is somewhat more expensive than what we are buying, but in 2 weeks we will decide exactly how much we'll be purchasing. I believe that the generators will have to purchase imported coal. We wouldn't like it to happen, but we have to. As to who will resign, I believe the parliament, that's their function. if we do not cope, and we have no chances not to cope with, we will just waste time. In September it will be late. Now, in the next 10-20 days, we have to do it all. Okay, we're limited in time. 2 more questions and we will be finishing. Natalka Prutka, Ukrainian Truth, Glавcom. I'm now in Glавcom, not in Ukrainian Truth. And Урядовый Courier, Government Courier newspaper. You're talking about 2 billion which are in energy market, but in 5 months, that's the loan, but in 5 months of this year, just for 5 months of this year, energy generators did not receive 8 billion, so the gap is 6 billion. So where are we planning to get the money from to buy coal? We had to have 3.5-4 million tons before the heating season. I mean, at this warehouses, they're talking about 2.7 million tons, but in the period of the war we need to have more, so that we don't have the situation that we had in the end of July. The power plants were stopping operations one by one. Several units were stopped. That's the disaster that we have never had in Ukraine in the years of independence. So the 3,000 megawatt, what is the disaster had in winter time? It's even difficult to understand. We would like to understand what volumes of coal. We understand that we cannot understand anything with the ATO situation. What are the volumes from South Africa? What are the contracts? How much will be supplied? Till when? How much will we be buying from Russia? And again, we are moving towards import of electricity. The country is now not the exporter of electricity, but the importer. Thank you for, I would like to confirm again that 2 billion is what the energy market received. You say that the energy market did not receive 8 billion, it's approximately 5 billion, and that's true. We are working with this situation, and I believe we will correct it. The generation should have the resources for repairs and for purchase of coal. That is what we understand more or less as to the debts, and we will address this issue. I will not tell you more now, but we don't need to use such words as disaster, tragedy. There's no disaster. The system is operating. We have 1.5 million tons of coal in warehouses. We need to increase it to almost 3 million. We talking about import, we understand where we can get it from. First of all, from South Africa. Will we be buying from Russia? Maybe yes, if the price is correct, because now South African is much cheaper than Russian. We are now unloading at the price of $65, and the Russians offer at the price of $80. So we don't see any disaster. We are working according to the plan. The situation is complicated, but it's under the control of the government. We'll do everything to do it all. And Yuri Sakwa, First Deputy Head of Ukrainian Energy Assembly. My question is to Valeryi Voschevskyi. What we are discussing today, whether we have money or no money, whether we have electricity or no electricity, the balance which is of electricity which is approved is where we can find answers to these questions today. There is no balance of electricity approved by the Cabinet of Ministers. The balance which was approved by the Minister in June does not answer the question whether we need to buy, how much coal we need, how much money. The question is why did the Cabinet of Ministers not approve the balance of electricity? Because we are in a very difficult situation. That was the last question, okay? You repeated what I was saying yesterday. Yesterday I was speaking at the anti-crisis meeting. We sort of have this balance of electricity which is approved by the minister. It doesn't satisfy the government because the developers cannot explain many things, which we understand what we are talking about. The Prime Minister warned for the last time, the Minister, he said a week maximum and the balance should be here in the Cabinet of Ministers with all the answers, with the answers to all the questions which we have. I believe this is what will be happening. The government does pay attention to this important topic, the balance of electricity, and you will know about that. So we will finish now. I would like to thank everyone who joined us at this round table, and I would like to remind that this is just the first round table in this cycle of round tables. Thank you, dear colleagues, for your